Here we are, fourth episode. And today, my co host is back. Ivan, how are you?
How you doing, everyone?
All right,
I'm good.
good. Um, for the last three episodes, we've been getting a lot of great feedback. And I got a couple people asking who you were. And they was like, why wasn't he in the second episode? I was like, well, the people that I knew that I told them that, family obligations, stuff like that. I'm not forcing this guy to be my co-host, and I felt like maybe the second episode was a good time to be solo. So that's why I went through my whole history, and then I did tell everybody else that your name and who you were, and you were my co-host for that second first episode. So it all played out well, and
All
then
right.
the third episode was me, my teacher, and that played out well too. All right. So what I want to discuss today is finding a Jeet Kune Do instructor. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this topic today is because there are new people listening to the podcast. Um, and probably in the back of their mind, they want to know what type of research that they can do to look for a Jeet Kune Do instructor. With my experience, that my research abilities or resources was very small. There was no such thing as Google at that time. When I typed in JKD or Jeet Kune Do, it just ran with a small list. Not today, because today you type in Jeet Kune Do in Google, like whoosh, you have thousands and thousands of pages. So I would take this episode to be more of a resource, right? I'm going to start with number one, the search engine. It's always great to go to the internet. I mean, back in the day was a phone book, those big ass phone books that everybody used to do.
The yellow
The
pages.
yellow pages, correct. So, what I did, I had internet. I used Yahoo. It was, available back then. I typed in JKD. Like I said, it was a small list. Um, None around my area. In conclusion, I knew someone from Florida who put me on the path of my teacher now, and I looked him up, and he was from Fishkill, New York, Super Richard Torres. From that point on, my interest already was in Jeet Kune Do, right? And when I contacted my Sifu, I had a bunch of questions I wanted to ask him, but I wanted to keep them all to a minimum because I knew that I was going to meet him, right? So I felt that I should hold my questions when I saw him physically. So I'm going to ask you this question. When did you decide that you wanted to learn Jeet Kune Do?
Just after high school, um, I wanted to get into Jeet Kune Do, but it wasn't more so looking for instructors or a school. I had actually found a DVD. The DVD only shows you so much, and it gets very into detail where it blends a lot of different styles and a lot of different moves. And it's like if you don't specifically know those styles to know what you're rolling into to go
Right.
from one move into the next, then you're kind of lost, but not extremely helpful.
Let me ask you this. Now, at that point, when you got that DVD, did you think that mixing those styles, did you think that's what Jeet Kune Do was?
At the time, yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, I felt that it was just like what they were showing in the actual DVD was just way too advanced because it wasn't like you're starting off from the basics and then working your way up. It was just like full blown like some of the things they were showing just went into like a 5 6 step move process, and it's like, you
Right.
know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
too much, like right off the bat.
When I also did my research into JKD, um, I didn't realize it was split into two, meaning there was what they called original Jeet Kune Do, and the other was JKD concepts. And that's one of the questions I wanted to ask my teacher. At the
Hmm.
time, he wasn't my teacher yet. When I did meet him, and after the first class that I had with him, I asked him this question. And he told me somewhere along the line, it got split into two. And there are people who teach what Bruce Lee taught during his lifetime. And there are others that teach what they mainly call Bruce's philosophy of martial art, which got a little confusing. But I don't know about you, but for me, I wanted to learn what Bruce was teaching at that time. So when you felt that it was time for you to do JKD, what did you do next?
What happened was I actually wasn't really looking for JKD specifically. I wasn't even
Okay.
really looking to get into a martial art.
Okay.
Um, I had been diagnosed with a autoimmune,
Oh boy.
and because of that, the medication they gave me was giving me extreme anxiety attacks.
Hmm.
And um, my doctor basically said that I should find an outlet, something that'll, kind of calm me down, something that I could kind of get into and focus on and try to, take my mind off of it by thinking about some of the other things that I do. Me and my wife started looking for a martial art. She was asking me what I wanted to get into. And actually, the first one that I wanted, that I had said, was Jeet Kune Do, because I love the idea of interception, catching your
Right.
opponent as they're coming to you before they get you.
Right.
Um, she tried looking it up and she couldn't find anything in our area
Yeah.
whatsoever. It was funny because later that night, my wife's, looking through Meetup.
Oh
And
yeah. I remember
yeah,
that. Yeah.
she was looking through Meetup and she happened to come across this thing. And she's like, oh, she's like, this interception thing is, she's like, is this anything like what you were talking about? And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, yes, it is. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's actually right here in Paramus. So that's how, that's pretty much how it started.
Now, you didn't have any, or did you have any expectations when you started
Um,
or before you came to the class?
well, mm, expectations, maybe not so much. I had some concerns about going there and having an instructor that was either like a drill sergeant where you do
Mhm.
anything wrong, you're just going to get, he's going to
Yeah.
come over and just start like, no, you don't do it that way. You do it,
Right.
like very strict. Or I was also like nervous about going and having an instructor who's full of it, who's like,
Yeah.
you see a lot of those, what are they called? Like fake martial art instructors.
Yes. You know what?
Sure, I'm sure everybody's seen at least one of those videos on YouTube.
The one that you talk about, like drill sergeant, they do have martial arts instructors, especially in karate. I mean, like old school
Yeah.
Japanese karate. Um, I don't think around here in Jersey, but I know a couple places in the United States, but obviously mostly in Japan, and
Hmm.
they are strict. There's no fooling around, there's no talking. I think I saw it on YouTube that these instructors are very, proper. They're very proud of their forms. You see what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Like, you do something wrong, you know, like what you said, you might have to do like 200 push-ups or stuff like that. But then that's why, they love their art, and they want their
Yeah.
art to be, if you're going to represent their art, it has to be perfect.
Hmm.
The Japanese culture is very obviously different from our culture here, because we have a lot of martial arts schools that do the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pizza party. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
it works for other schools, but then martial arts schools should be just martial arts schools,
Yeah.
right? I mean, hey, congratulations, it's your birthday. You're here to train. Good. No party for you. You're going to
Yeah.
train. With those type of parties, that's how schools make money. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine with them. But then I remember asking my teacher that, and my teacher's like, "We're not babysitters.
Yeah.
We're not, uh, we don't provide any type of helping homework programs.
Hmm.
I'm like, why would I want to have people come over and for me to help them with their homework? It's so ridiculous.
Hmm.
That martial arts school should be martial arts schools. You come in, you train, that's it. Unfortunately, the United States, especially the United States, don't have that concept. It's all about making the money, any
Yeah.
way possible, you know. And it's very unfortunate because when martial arts schools are based with that type of situation, the martial arts starts to fade out a little bit. And it's all of a sudden it's just an after school program. It's it's
Hmm.
it's just weird. So the reason why I have my school, and especially with the kids class, you've seen the kids class. There's no
Yep.
fooling around. I don't have these kids run around and laugh and all this stuff. I always tell them this is real. You're learning how to defend yourself. This is something you shouldn't be playing around or laughing at, because if you miss one step or if you get distracted, you're going to get punched in the face or something worse. So, with that in turn, that was one of the questions I had from my teacher. The question was, why is it original JKD and JKD concepts? Why are they separate? And do we do forms in JKD? And he said no. And that's what I wanted to, because as you know, I've done forms up the yin yang, and it was just like, oh my God, it was never ending. And I always felt that learning how to protect myself was the biggest thing that I always wanted to do. And to know. Let me ask you this. When you started JKD, what was your first impression?
When I went into the class, my first impression was, because we started off and we learned the stance. Okay. And I literally expected day one to just be the stance.
Hmm.
So when we started working on certain kicks, and I honestly don't remember exactly what else we did that day, but there was a few things that we went over, and we actually went over quite a bit just in the first class. So I was actually very excited because I thought we were just going to be like, it's just going to be the stance. And then next week, we'll start working on maybe like one kick. And then next week, working on one punch. And it was progressive, I guess you could say. We were learning quite a bit.
See, what people have to realize when they start their JKD path, right? You want to make sure that whoever you're learning from is teaching you what Bruce Lee was developing, right? His philosophy is great only as a philosophy,
Mhm.
right? So my thing is, when you start JKD, it's always going to be a learning experience, especially to the people like yourself at that time who didn't know any martial arts. I mean, there are a lot of people who are having a tough time in martial arts because their teacher is always teaching something so difficult, and especially in like some sort of first level class, a basic class. Whenever I teach the class, I feel that every class, especially a first level class, has to be on a pace where how would I want to be taught if I'm learning something new? I don't want to be taught where, okay, listen, step one, step two, step three, do it. And then people get lost, and then that's how people get discouraged. Always ask the teacher, what is the pace that your teacher takes when you're dealing with a new student, especially when they start Jeet Kune Do. If he gives you the answers like, oh well, I show the student these particular movements, and then I have them try it out, and then if that question or if that answer doesn't appeal to you, let that teacher know. It's like, hey, listen, I'm the type of person who likes to take it slow from step one. If I learn everything in step one and step two, if that's okay, is it possible that I could go on my own pace? And if the teacher says yes, then you're good to go. So when they start the class and this teacher is going from step 1 to step 14 all in one shot, and he is not going to the pace that you're requesting, then there's going to be a problem, right?
Hmm.
So that's why all the time that I have newcomers who does the trial run, I always have you help out, to take it step by step with them. In the beginning of the class, I always teach them the stance, and I let everybody do the stance, just a refresher course,
Hmm.
so they
Yeah.
feel that, right? So they feel that, oh, they're not the only ones who's going to be, doing the stance. I'm going to have everybody do the stance, so
Yep.
everybody should know the stance by now when the newcomer comes in. It's just a short review.
I still don't know it.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Right. So the next thing about doing your research or when you're looking for a teacher is number one, their martial arts background. So it's very, very important. As you were saying before, the expectations of meeting a teacher, if you don't know if this person's like a drill sergeant or if he's a bullshitter, or that's something every person has to ask, especially
Yeah.
when they're getting into something that they know they want to be committed to. One of the things that you have to ask your Jeet Kune Do or the Jeet Kune Do instructor is, what is your martial arts background? I mean, you're there giving your time, and you're also taking away from this person's time just to talk about your future with that school, right? Ask away, ask these questions, ask relevant questions, ask questions that you don't want to ask during the time you already started, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't work out for you. These are the first times, and especially the first impressions are always going to be with you, because once you start that class, that's something that you have to realize, this is your commitment to it, you know
Hmm.
so so number one, again, when you talk to the Jeet Kune Do instructor, ask for his martial arts background. If he did all these martial arts, great, so he's experienced in martial arts, right? Second, ask if this Jeet Kune Do instructor has a JKD certificate. Now, there's there's a lot of people saying that, well, Bruce Lee never had a Jeet Kune Do certificate, or he never was certified by Yip Man to be an instructor. It's true. He was never certified by Yip Man or bestowed instructorship by Yip Man.
Wouldn't that have been under Wing Chun though?
Correct. Bruce did not have any type of authority to to teach whatever Yip Man was teaching him,
Hmm.
right? So let's say he doesn't have one, and he brings up, oh, Bruce Lee was never certified by Yip Man. Walk out the door.
And
Go ahead.
also they should probably look into the lineage to see where the certificate came from, which line
Right.
it came from.
Yeah. So that's my next thing. Now, with the and if they do have JKD certification, the lineage. So the lineage that I have is from Richard Torres. His teacher was Ted Wong, and obviously Ted Wong's teacher was Bruce Lee. So there's a lineage there, and people get this really confused, or they don't do that much research. Bruce Lee never gave out Jeet Kune Do certificate, teaching certificates. These certificates that most of them have, or all of them have, are ranking certificates. All right, there was an argument on the Facebook forum about this teacher had a Jeet Kune Do instructor certificate by Bruce Lee. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Show it to me. Where's the picture of it? I want to see it, because he never gave out Jeet Kune Do instructor certificates.
Yeah, make
And
sure it's legit.
make sure it's legit. Correct. Is lineage actually important to you, though?
Yeah. I obviously didn't want to get into just a JKD that wasn't in the lineage, because you don't know what this person's really going to be teaching you. And because you don't know JKD, you don't know what they're adding to it that isn't
Mm,
part of proper JKD. You know
right.
what I mean? So that, to me, in the beginning, honestly, I didn't really know so much about the lineage. I didn't. So once I started finding out about the lineage, that's when I was more like, okay, I actually got into the right spot.
Right. Now,
You know,
did you know who Ted Wong was?
at the time when I started the school, no, it
No.
was actually after, I think it was the second class. It wasn't the first class. It was actually after the second class
Right.
where I really started doing some research, looking into who Ted Wong was, and and Richard Torres, and the whole lineage, and
Right.
finding out who they were, what they've done, and that's pretty much where my
Yeah.
research went.
Good. There's a lot of people also too that feel that lineage is not important to them. That's which is fine. Which is fine.
Hmm.
If you just want to learn JKD from any old instructor without a JKD certificate, by all means, do whatever you want. But then there are people who want to start on a path learning what Bruce Lee was teaching during his lifetime, and they want to find the right teacher, right? And when they find the teacher, they have to ask these questions, right? They have to ask, where does your lineage lie when it comes to JKD, right? And when they tell you, it's like, who is this person? Who is this person to Bruce? Was he a student? Was he a friend? What did this person learn from Bruce? That's always the important thing when it comes down to JKD. Because when JKD is being taught by all these teachers, it should be taught properly, not to the point where, like, as we go back to what we're saying, taking this martial arts from here, taking this martial arts from here, and as what you said, that they might be adding something that you don't know about, and they say it's JKD, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that people have to be aware of. You don't want to be asking the teacher, oh, you're bullshitting me and all this stuff. You have to be respectful.
Hmm.
When you're asking these questions. If you feel that this is not this teacher for you, go somewhere else. How do you feel about JKD now from the first time that you started?
I still love it. I still love it. I had, like I said, my interest in it was always up there. And once I actually went for the first class, I just fell in love with it
Yeah.
and just wanted to keep going. And, you know, um, once we got to sparring, that's where it
Ah,
really, really took off. And it's
yeah,
like, I don't want to stop,
yeah. So,
you know?
so um, what I said earlier, that Chisao was once the nucleus of JKD, and then Bruce changed it, and he said Chisao is no longer the nucleus of JKD, and Chisao is out. That's the quote everybody quotes from, that
Hmm.
Chisao is out. People were wondering why Chisao was out. Is because when Bruce started to spar, and as you said, that it became more realistic, right?
Yeah.
It became alive.
Yeah.
Because in Chisao, Chisao, you kind of stay where you are doing the Chisao. We've done Chisao, right?
Hmm.
And you kind of stay in one particular area. Even though we move, it's not moving a lot. But with sparring, it's much more alive.
Chisao, I feel, is good for like your sensitivity training,
Yes.
where sparring is more that interaction where it's not always about the sensitivity. It's about the movement and your reaction and what you're going to do to either counter or get out of the way of somebody's attack, or how you're going to approach an attack
Right.
to try
Right.
to not come straight on where they see it coming, but do something else to kind of distract them and catch them off guard.
Right. It's like it works on your attributes, right?
Hmm.
Because we could work on the pads forever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you could hit the pads loud, and you could get all this, but then an actual combat, actual physical, hitting, that's where the true tests lie.
Yeah.
Some people are good with the interception. When a person comes in, you intercept, in the sparring situation, right? And some people are not. So that's why, in a way, sparring is very important, but it's not the end all or be all. It's just one of the tools to help you understand yourself as a person who's studying JKD, and
Yeah.
also understanding how the tools are worked, right? How the tools are
Yep.
executed, right?
Yeah. With the body mechanics and the full breakdown.
Correct, correct. And here's another thing too. If people are looking into JKD and they ask these questions about body mechanics, as you mentioned it, because of the fact that if you do research on JKD, you will hear Bruce or see Bruce's notes stating body mechanics, right? Body mechanics are very important. Ask that JKD teacher if that JKD teacher teaches body mechanics. Ask him about the power line. Ask him about the center line, right? Ask him about the three forces, right? So if they cannot um, explain that to you, then you have to think about it. Does this guy actually really know JKD, right? For instance, now you know, Ivan, now you know the power line, the center line, the three
Mm-hmm.
forces, you know, but before you didn't know. And that's something that every JKD student should know in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
is to learn the stance, right? To learn where the defensive hand goes and the attacking hand goes, and always protect the center line, and always keep that heel up. Let people know that if they look at YouTube or even if they look at a demonstration by these JKD instructors, see if their heel is up when they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's very
Yep.
important. And then if people who are listening to this podcast, like, why do we have to know if the heel is up? That's where you have to do the research, my friend. You have to
Yep.
see and in Bruce's notes or the Tao Jeet Kune Do to see why is that heel very important to be up, right? And if they're flat-footed, we all know what happens, or we all know what happens if the feet or the heel is down versus the heel is up, right? It's always that little detail that people always miss when they start learning JKD.
Before we move on, I also wanted to say that after the first class, one of the things that really got its hooks in me, that got me like really into it, was the street fighting aspect. The fact
Right.
that in the first class, we did the rising front kick
Yes,
to the groin.
to the groin.
You're not going to see that in the competition.
Yes,
You're going to see that in the streets, and
yes.
that's how I knew that, okay, this is more my speed. I want to know something that's like, there are no rules. I can't, you know.
So that's what everybody should be also putting in their list to ask these JKD instructors. As you said, JKD is designed for street fighting, right? So even though Bruce Lee was a martial artist, he was also a person who fought in the streets way before Wing Chun, right? He was fighting the streets, right? Even when he was in Wing Chun, he did have Wing Chun battles in the streets. So when people say Bruce Lee was never a street fighter, he was an actor, I say, man, you have not done your research. I look at these people, I'm trying to figure out why these people feel that just because he was great in the movies as a fighter in the movies and think that he was never a fighter in real life. It just didn't make sense to me. Uh,
Isn't that why he came to America, because he got in trouble for fighting so much?
yes, and also because he had to reclaim his American citizenship.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
because remember he was born in San Francisco and then he moved back
Yes,
to Hong Kong and then
yes. But he was getting in a lot of trouble
oh
over
yeah,
there, right?
he was, yeah, one of the, I can't say a rumor, but one of the situations why he moved back was because he beat up one of chief inspector's kid.
Yes, I think I
And
heard
right,
that one. Yeah.
and he was, and they was tell the police was telling Bruce's parents that if if Bruce doesn't stop fighting, he's going to jail. That's one of the things that I've heard. I can't say rumors, but it's probably one of the things that's what happened, and he had to move to America. But um, Matthew Polly, his book, Bruce Lee Alive, it explains why he moved back to America. Actually, I started rereading it just a little bit, piece by piece, because it's a great book. I think
Hmm.
everybody should start reading that book. Um, so now, what you were saying before, ask the JKD instructor if they do any type of street fighting scenarios, right? Because that's very important. Like I was telling you before, in my old school, I was just doing forms, thinking I was going to learn martial arts, self defense. And in a way, yes. And I find out it's not efficient, right? It wasn't simple, you know. And when we did get into sparring, we did that one point, hit you in the chest, stop type of sparring. It's not the one that we do. We get all
Hmm.
fully geared up and let's go. We had the foam helmet on, like people have in Taekwondo, open face, and the gloves, the circle gloves that goes around your the Taekwondo, and no knee guards. We didn't have any shin guards, and we were barefooted, and we just like it looked like uh, amateur fighting at its best,
Hmm.
because yeah, here's the rules: don't hit in the face, don't hit to the groin, don't hit to the knee, hit to the chest, and then you win. I'm like, what did I win? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So that's something that people have to look into, is sparring, all right? And when they do spar, do they do full contact, meaning hit to the face, hit to the groin, hit to the knee, right? Because if that JKD school is not doing that, they're missing the whole point of what JKD is. And as you said it, street fighting aspect of that situation. Because when we spar, and as I said it before, it works on the attributes, it works on our tools, the execution of our tools, right?
Hmm.
So after all that, do you at this point feel that you fully understand JKD?
No,
No.
no.
That's actually the right answer. That's actually the right answer, because I don't fully understand JKD. However, because of the fact that every teacher should be saying, I am still a student of JKD. There's
Hmm.
always more to learn. And if you do ask this JKD instructor this, do you feel that you fully understand JKD? And if they say yes, they're bullshitting you. Because of the fact that I'm still a student, I'm still a student of JKD, right? I'm still seeing my teacher every week to train with him. If I
Hmm.
feel that I fully understand JKD, I wouldn't be seeing him anymore. So let's go over back to the list, right? So when you look for a JKD instructor, number one, look through the internet. That's the only way. There's no phone books.
Do
There's
your research.
Do the research, correct. Now, number two, look to see if there is a JKD school in your area. There may not be, but if you are looking for a JKD instructor, and if this person is 60 miles away, like my teacher, and you want to learn JKD, then you might have to travel those 60 miles, which I've been doing for the last 15 years. So that's a decision that anybody would have to make a decision for. All right. So when you do meet with the JKD instructor, ask about the martial arts background. Ask about what did he do before JKD. And if they don't have a martial arts background, that's still okay. The next thing that you have to ask, do you have a JKD certification? If they say yes, who is it? What is their lineage to Bruce Lee? Because let's be real, Jeet Kune Do derived from Bruce Lee, right? You can't be in Jeet Kune Do and not like Bruce Lee. It's just impossible, right? You can respect Bruce Lee, right? But you also have to respect his contribution to martial arts, right? You have to respect that his research allowed him to develop his knowledge of defending himself and passed it on to his student, to his other students, and then so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the side note: know all Bruce Lee students, know them. Ted Wong, Dan Inosanto, know all of them. Like I said before, to some, lineage is, it doesn't really matter to people, but for you and me, Ivan, it really matters because we want to be a few steps away from Bruce Lee,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what matters to us. If it doesn't matter the to this person looking to the JKD and they just want to learn JKD from whoever, okay. Even like what you said, Ivan, that before you joined JKD lineage, you didn't even have that in your mind, but
Mm-hmm.
then you did the research, and then you felt this is very important.
Yeah.
So if you're like Ivan and you just joined JKD and you're training in it, and then when your teacher told you about his teacher, and all of a sudden that the lineage is very important, good. I'm glad, because of the fact that we have to preserve that lineage. But if lineage is not what you're looking for, okay, so be it. That's that's your prerogative. But our prerogative is keeping that lineage and preserving it.
Also, in when I was researching it, Ted Wong actually taught Shannon Lee, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Um,
So that's
I
another factor that when I found out, I was like, oh wow, okay,
yeah.
this is good.
Um, I'm not trying to put anybody on top of who's was the best student out of Bruce, but Ted Wong was actually known for a student that moved like Bruce, and that appealed to me. He wasn't imitating Bruce because of the fact that Ted Wong did not have any martial arts experience.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just like a blank slate, right? So whatever he learned from Bruce, he was kind of like taking it all in. And
Mm-hmm.
however Bruce moved, Ted Wong moved, and that appealed to me. This is, a lineage that I want to be part of. But the important lineage, obviously, is Bruce, because without Bruce, there would be no Ted Wong, right? And without Ted Wong, would be no Richard Torres, and so on and so forth, right? So also ask about sparring, ask about street fighting training, right? Because if they do not teach any of those two, or if they don't teach both of them, then they're not a JKD school. You need to know how to throw a punch. You need to know how to take a punch. You need to know how to defend from a punch. And that's all taught in the JKD school. If they don't do that, if they do any sparring and they say, oh, well, sparring is not, real fighting, correct. It's not real fighting because obviously we have the padded equipment, however, it is essential to the training, right? One last thing, to also make sure that you let the JKD teacher knows you want to be set on a steady pace of learning all the basics, especially when you're starting off. It has to be to a pace where you have to learn everything step by step, but not like step 1 through step 15 all in 2 minutes, right? That will discourage the student, right? So when you start the class, it should be to a pace where, okay, I want to learn everything in detail. Okay.
Another thing that I love about our class is the fact that I can stop and ask questions at any time.
Yes. Yes. That's why, good thing that you brought it up. Also, if this, always ask your JKD teacher if they have any type of question and answer uh, part inside the class, right? It cannot be, this is what I say and this is what you should do. It cannot be that way. It cannot be that way because you need to have that interaction with that student because you want to have their training to be open to where you can ask a question and you don't get penalized for it, right? Or you don't get slapped in the face with a over the backhand or like, oh,
Or with
don't
the
act,
yellow pages.
or with the or with the yellow pages, correct, right? So okay, I think that's it. So we're at the end of the podcast where we're at the last words.
Oh.
So yeah, do you have any last words for the podcast?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
Oh.
not
Okay.
really.
So all right, I'll give you my last words. When it feels that you're not getting anywhere, right? Or when you feel like you're stagnant, always remember that it's all about patience, right? So when we talk about starting a JKD class or starting training in JKD, you want to know everything so much. You want to learn this so much and you want to get to the next level like that so quick. Realize that you're just starting off. And if you want to be set on a pace, as you tell the JKD teacher, where you want to learn everything step by step, then you have to do everything step by step, walk step by step.
You have to
Right?
lay down the foundation.
Correct. Right. So as for you, as an example, since you are my first student, that you have to lay that foundation where everything will come to you in time. There are times when, for me, I felt frustrated because I'm not going anywhere with this particular thing or this particular project. And I feel like, okay, if I know that if I keep doing this and keep putting the work, something will come out of it. It may not be now, but eventually something will happen for me. I, for the people who are listening, I don't want people to feel that when they're training, they're not going anywhere. Everything has to keep going forward. Even if you stop in a particular area, you won't stay there forever. If this kick is not going out properly, if this punch is not going out properly, keep training, keep consistent. And if it's at a stagnation, don't worry about it. Just make sure you don't stay there. Once you start, just keep on going. So I guess that's my last words of the podcast. So, all right. So everybody, if you want to ask any questions or give any comments, we're at thenucleusinitiative@gmail.com. If you want to look at our past episodes, we are on anchor.fm/the nucleus initiative. That's it. So everybody have a good one and we'll see you next time. All right.